All right, let's get started. So welcome to this session, this webinar, where we'll be talking about capacity management, hence the title, No More Surprises, Better Capacity Management for the Holidays. So first off, some practical information. You're allowed to ask questions along the way in the chat, but we will summarize at the end and take it there. The session will be recorded and uploaded afterwards, and you will receive a link to actually see it again afterwards. We have a tight agenda. I'll try to keep up the pace, but not talking too fast. And please find out your phone or computer, because there will also be some kind of Menti questions along the way. Let's get started. So about me, my name is Peter. I'm the product owner of Team Planner. Have been that for a bit over a year now. I'm also the co-product owner of Time for Teams, and I've been at Projektum for 7 years. I've done a lot of customer implementation, and especially in resource management. And that's also why I'm here to talk a bit about capacity management and how we see that. So the agenda is a bit tight, but basically we are starting by defining capacity management. We will talk about issues in capacity management and also try to translate it into how we see that in holiday seasons, mainly around, the summer vacation coming up now, but also around Christmas, where most of people have a day off, but we also see Easter and other kind of holidays where people are basically having some off time. Then we are talking about the struggle of forecasting. So how do we balancing the capacity and the demand? Then we talk about better capacity planning with Team Planner. And then at the end, some key takeaways and best practices. Please find out your phone and go to Mentimeter, where you will be able to ask the question, how do you define capacity management? You can scan the QR code, or you can actually use the code on the screen. And shortly I will be joining and show the answers, and then we can be talking throughout that. All right, let's switch screen here. So now we see the screen. And how do you define capacity management? You can submit as many responses as you want. So please feel free to put in. So we have one, making sure there's the right amount of people. Let's see if other comes in here. How the organization divides work time on projects. Let's keep it a few more seconds, and then we will go back to the slide. All right, not that much of an activity. Never mind. I have my own way of defining capacity management, so let's move on. So how do we define capacity management? Well, that's not simple to answer, but if we kind of narrowing it down, capacity management is a process that aims to balance demand and capacity, and balancing the available resources with the demand for these resources. It involves planning, managing, and optimizing the utilization of resources to ensure that an organization have sufficient capacity to meet the current and future demand that the business actually needs. So that means in terms that we are talking about projects that are already running, we have a demand for that, and we have already allocated people, which we have answered with a capacity. But then we have things coming in, right? New projects, new initiatives, which have a demand and which needs to be allocated with capacity. And how could we look at this capacity? So that's very difficult to answer, and it depends on where in the world you're placed, depending on how you're working inside your organization. And there's many ways to answer that question. One simple way could be, how could a 144 hours capacity be distributed on a resource? Well, that could be working 80 hours on a project that is already running. So you have been allocated, you know what you're doing. Then you have operational hours, and that could be 40 hours. So you have things that are not project, something that you need to do to keep the business running. It could also be training, other stuff that are not project related. Then you might have some holidays or public vacation, and that could be set to 16 hours. And if we look at an 8 hours day, that will be 2 days off within that given month. And then at the end, you could have some free capacity. That could be 8 hours you have left. And that is how you can sum up the capacity with a month of 144 hours. And that depends. That could also be 175 if it's another place or another month, depending on how many working days we have. But it could also be that your organization already have taken into account that your capacity doesn't include public holidays and stuff like that. And then the amount of hours you have available will of course be less. That could be 120, for example, because we have already advocated for the public holidays or vacation you typically have distributed over a year. But talking about capacity is also something else, and that is put into three different buckets. Of course, we have human resources. They have a fixed capacity and can be planned based on demand. Then we have materials. Materials can be demanded, but the capacity often comes to production and availability. That could be steel or pills, depending on what kind of industry you're working within, concrete, etc., etc. Then we have equipment. So equipment can vary in capacity and availability, that depending on the uses and the quantity. So for example, in this picture, we have an excavator, which of course need to be run by a human resource. So the availability is actually depending on someone actually using it. However, for an appliance, a freezer, for example, that can run 24 hours a day without anyone controlling it. So it depends very much on the actual equipment. So that's the kind of, cornerstones of what is capacity management. We have the balance between demand and the capacity. We have the different areas of capacity management: human resources, materials, equipment, etc. And then it's how much capacity does that actual have. In the case before, it was 144 hours, for example, but that could vary depending on where you're placed, availability, quantity, etc. What are the typical issues in capacity management? So capacity management is a complex process facing several challenges. And a lack of accurate demand forecasting often leads to a resource mismanagement. This can be divided into more subcategories, which can have different areas and aspects of why we actually see issues and challenges within capacity management. So first off, we have inaccurate demand forecasting. So one of the main challenges is actually predicting the future demand. It's very tough to say that I need this exact amount of people to fulfill this project, because a lot of things can have impacts of that. You're trying to predict, let's say you have a project running over 3 years, you're trying to predict what's happening the next 3 years. A lot could happen. We have seen a pandemic recently, which have a lot of impact on how we actually run our projects, etc. Overestimating can lead to excessive capacity. whereas underestimating can result in capacity shortage, leading to missed opportunities and potential loss of business. Another issue we typically see is resource availability. So ensuring the right amount of resources, including personal, equipment, and materials, can be a challenge, especially when there are fluctuations in demand. So basically you have a capacity you need to run from, but that capacity can vary. You can hire new people, you can fire new people, you can put in new equipment, you can be demanding a specific material which is out of stock and you are not able to get that before in the next 6 months, for example. So there's a lot about resource availability. Do we have what we need, and can we actually get what we need within the next 6, 9, 12 months, for example? And that's a real challenge that we see in capacity management, actually having the resource availability. Typically, we see that in specific projects, in specific organization, they are using a few specific resources, which of course always creates the bottleneck because there are a lack of resource availability in that specific department or area. Next one is inefficient processes. So operational inefficiency can lead to capacity management issues. For example, if a process is not streamlined or optimized, it can reduce the capacity of the organization. So I see that a lot. We come out to our customers trying to help them with gathering a resource management process. And this is one of the first steps to actually look into to ensure that you have a smooth and optimized process in ensuring that you have resource availability, you have the accurate demand need, etc., etc. So this is one of the main challenges to ensuring the right process. And that is very difficult to answer based on what you're working with. So what kind of industry and in what area, and also depending on the size, of course. But having the right process also helps you actually ensuring the right demand and also the right resource availability. And then at the end, we will see increased pressure. So different seasons and macroeconomics factors can put immense pressure on supply chains due to increased demand. This can lead to longer lead time and potential disruptions. So basically, we just talked about 3 other challenges, which all 3 of them also can lead to increased pressure, right? So it's not only fluctuation of seasons, it's also that you have lack of resource availability or not a proper way of demanding your resources. But it can also be pressure coming from the top management, ensuring we need to run a given project or given projects to ensure the business is running. And if we're trying to push something through with a fixed capacity, well, it's very difficult to do that if we don't have the capacity to actually do that. So I think this is why we put the increased pressure at the end, because, well, there's a lot of things that could lead to increased pressure. And if you are ensuring you have the right processes and maybe also accurating your demand, sorry for that, you can also take some kind of the pressure. So if we should try to translate that into challenges that we see in dedicated holiday season, right? Well, the first off is that we have unpredictable demand, which can lead to capacity constraints and delays. So typically during holiday season, people will be off, and during this period, we still have projects we need to run, right? And we see customers not taking that into account when they're actually budgeting with the projects for the next year. So let's assume you're doing a budget round in October, maybe September, November, for the next year project. And then you're putting in what is the demand. We need this X amount of resources to actually fulfill this project. And then we're lagging in the terms of holiday season coming in, right? And typically the summer holiday is one of the big ones where people are off for 2 to 4 weeks, typically, especially here in Denmark. And suddenly we have a lack of resources. But meaning one resource is out is of course not necessarily an issue, but having people going on and off of vacation can also have a lag in the handover of the project, which surely moves me to the next one, right? Capacity availability. People are off, materials and equipment can be affected due to the use of resources, and that means deadline can be postponed. So like I said before, people are moving on and off on vacation, which will make the capacity a lot less than we typically see. And this can have effect not only on resources, but also the equipments or materials that we are actually using. And due to that, we can go to the next one, which is due to the unpredictable demand and lower capacity. This can lead again to the increased pressure in the organization. So not only do we see general challenges in terms of increased pressure, this will especially have issues around the holiday season, because people are trying to finalize things before going on vacation. They can see that they are behind already with some deadline milestones, which is not that good, and this typically leads to postponing the projects. And if you're not aware of that and taking into account that we will have holiday season, which comes every year, you will see an increased pressure. So flexibility is needed, right? This could be temporary workers, consultant, or changes to knowledge base, all which can impact the cost. So of course, hiring in temporary workers have a high cost, but it can ensure that you can follow the dedicated plan and the demand that you have created in the beginning. Another way around could hire change of knowledge base. So that could be you train people in doing other stuff as well. It could be a proper handover in some of the given tasks. So ensure you have a dedicated vacation plan. And if you're able to do that, you're also able to keep the prediction that you have done based on your demand. So find out your phone again, and I will very much like to hear what kind of challenges you are facing in general, talking about capacity management, but also if you see any challenges related to capacity management when we are talking holiday season. So please go to Menti. Again, if you haven't closed it, it's perfect. And I will switch the screen in just a few seconds. Let's switch screen here and see if we have any people in here, and we can go to the next slide. So what challenges are you facing? Communication is the issue to the rest of the organization. That's a good one. And I think that's actually a very valid point, because this is not only something that we see in holiday seasons, that's something we see in general as well, right? But communication between project managers, so the demander, and the line managers who have the capacity is very important. We try to account for holiday season, but it's the suppliers that are the problem, and that's another issue, right? So even though you're trying to do the best, if your suppliers is not delivering, well, that's an issue, right? Lack of knowledge about patterns in the organization, that could also be tied up to the communication or even the supplier, right? Knowing what happened last year could be very beneficial to actually foresee or remove that friction next year. All right, let's move on. We have a tight agenda, so I will share the screen again. Next up, I would like to talk a bit about a case study An appliance manufacturer and holiday production. So basically, who is it? Well, it's a leading appliance manufacturer who is known for its popular and innovative products. What issues are they seeing? Well, they always faced issues delivering new projects on time due to capacity shortage. They actually conducted an analysis where they could see an average of overestimating with 40%. And this, of course, led to a lack of resource availability, especially on equipment being short in test phases, right? So I mentioned the freezer a bit earlier, which of course doesn't need any human resources to be there. But of course, at some point you should go back and test how that is going. But also for washing machine, dishwashers, those mainly need to be operated by human resources, probably not when they're running, but their running time is quite short. So the company faced a capacity constraint during the holiday production rush, which led to missed deadlines, stock out at retailers, lost sales, and strained relationship with actual partners, right? So what challenges did they see? Well, they first of all had a very inefficient capacity planning and resource allocation during peak periods. They have very difficult and accurately forecasting the demand for various products and projects. And they were having trouble balancing the need for flexibility with the cost of overcapacity during peak times. They had a lot of pressure from the management in terms of delivering new products and projects and ensure their products were actually innovative within the newest technologies. And they were not having a very agile approach, which means they were not reacting fast on fluctuating demand. And that could be back to the comment before, with suppliers not being able to deliver, for example. So what kind of potential solution could we look into in this case study? Well, first of all, agile capacity management. And that could be a big word, but essentially, if we boil it down, it could be adopting an agile approach that enhanced its capacity management to adjust production on real-time demand data, ensuring more profitability. Moreover, we could also do some cross-training of employees that ensured greater flexibility and a smooth transition across various projects and tasks. And that will also ensure that you have better handover during the holiday season. Then we have improved demand and allocation. So investment could be made in advanced analytics, in project and portfolio management tool, in resource management tool, even time management tool to enhance the accuracy of demand forecasting. Aligning resource allocation with these demands forecast ensured resources were assigned to projects at the right time. And then last one is continuous improvement and monitoring. A dedicated capacity management team that could also be a PMO or an RMO could be put in place to ensure and monitoring the performance and pinpointing out areas where we actually need improvement. And that's also to stay tuned with the changing market condition, regular reviews of capacity management process, but also to ensure that the increased pressure from the top management can be covered within the given capacity that we have. So if we look into agile capacity management and improve demand allocation, I will try to demo how Team Planner can facilitate a few of those. So let's jump out here. And for those of you that might not know Team Planner is Projektum resource management tool, which is basically a tool that allows for a digital handshake between the project manager as the demander and the line manager who is owning the capacity, basically. So what you can see here is that if I'm on a request page, I'm able to request based on my project. And to ensure we have constantly overview, I can ensure that all the projects that I'm owning, I can see where I need to do something. So I can also filter on priorities if we're working with that. So every project that has high priority, I should of course work with first. So in this case, we have a team planner community where I need to fulfill my demand and ensure I have received allocations. However, I have prepared a project here for us. So it's webinar 20th July. And what I can do is in the right side, find generic resources. So that will primarily be on roles where I can demand those. And I want all roles, but I want them from a specific part of the organization. So that could be in team A&R. And here I want a consultant, for example. But a consultant could have several skills, right? So this is where we could talk about the ability to have different skill sets or a different knowledge base during a summer period. So I can see the team A&R consultant relies in some Azure skills and some Power Platform. I want that. So I can drop that here. And then I can also have the team A&R developer, no specific skill on that, and I can put it in. And then I can say, okay, I need 150 hours for this one. And maybe I need 150 hours for this one as well. I can add more information on contract properties, so that can be kind of investment type, that could be application, it could be dishwasher, it could be something else, depending on what kind of organization you are, and I can have some priority. But I can also put in some requirements. So you need to have some Azure skills, and I can set that as well. Consultant, Azure, for example, and then I can save that. Then it's information I'm providing to the line manager to help me out finding the right capacity. And I can say, all right, that's fine. I will submit it, and then the request will be sent to the line manager. Before I show you how it actually works from the line manager perspective and how the real-time data can be handled, I want to show you some reports that we have built in. So if I go back here, I have a set of reports where I have something called roadmap planning. And in here, if I'm filtering on the team A&R, I can see running projects as the blue line, and then I can see ideas of business case coming in. So this is where I have a demand. And then, of course, I have my capacity line. So everything seems quite fine now with the roadmap projects coming in. So the business cases, I can manage to go with those within the capacity. However, if I refresh the report, I will now be able to see in just a few seconds how the capacity and the demand is actually changing. And I will come back to that in just a few seconds, and you will see how it has actually changed. So I have done the demand as a project manager. I'm in a need of a consultant and a developer, and it's both 1,050 hours from June to December. If I'm switching over to the allocation tab, which is mainly visible for me as a line manager, I still have my project picker. This is where people are asking for my resources, and they are sorted by where I need to do something the most. So red means I haven't done anything. I haven't answered any demand at all. And if I scroll to the bottom, you will see it gets greener and greener here. And all the way to the bottom is where I have answered everything. I have allocated 100%, everything is fine. So Team Planner automatically helps me to define based on a KPI, what do I need to look at? I can even go in and look at must-run projects. I haven't answered any of those. Maybe I need to start here. I could look at the priority high, where I also need to do some things, right? So Team Planner constantly helps me real time, tell me you need to do something here. All right, but we have selected the webinar project, and that's fine. I can actually start opening up and see, okay, if we take the RPS, which I'm working within Team A&R, well, then I can see for the dedicated timeline here that my people doesn't have that much free capacity. So Ajay has some free capacity, Niklas has some free capacity. Other than that, everyone is green, even Esben is over allocated 120%. So allocating, we can do that in a few seconds. I will come back to that. I really want to show you before we go back to the live demo how we can monitoring and keep utilizing the live data of Team Planner. So I just refresh the report, and now you can actually see the demand exceeds the capacity. So we have an increased pressure from the top management saying we need to run this project in order to keep the business running, etc., etc. But I can see, all right, that's fine, but I don't have the capacity to run based on that demand. So either we need to hire new people or we need to actually postpone other projects. And what is very beneficial with reports and having the data right at your hands is that I can say, okay, what if we don't want to run this? Well, then we're back to scratch before, right? But I can pick and choose from whatever roadmap projects the top management, for example, is pushing and say, that's fine, prioritize them, and then we can start deselecting based on the capacity. So you can see that we are moving around. So Team Planner allows you to have live data and be very reactive in an agile manner. That means I can go in as a line manager, see whenever someone has sent me a demand. We can even enable email notification, etc. And we can continuously monitoring the data coming in and see, okay, are people allocated to the right projects? That could be based on priority or other things. Before we move back to the live demo, I want to show you that the possibility to actually postpone something is quite easy. So let's assume, okay, we cannot run the webinar. Well, we will move the project request in time. So remove everything from the 1st of June and move it to, let's say, next year. So January 2024, the 1st. I'm moving everything. And now you can see I don't see anything unless I'm selecting a new timeline, including 2024. And that will be reflected in the report as soon as it's updated. So that's how you can utilize Team Planner to do some of these agile approach, being very reactive and working with that as a handshake between the project manager and line managers. And also, of course, on a top management part, seeing how can we prioritize these. I will come back later with some more demoing. But firstly, let's move back to the screen and continue the demo. Then the end result and benefits in actually utilizing some of these approaches was improved on-time project delivery, especially during peak periods, and higher customer satisfaction, a better relationship. It strengthened the relationship with partners. Due to improved reliability and responsiveness, we actually have clear overview and of the demand, of our capacity, and also the business cases and new projects coming in. It even enhanced our competitiveness and market share because we were able to meet the consumer demand more effectively. So we were able to put on new products to market faster. And basically, we had transparency, so we could see the demand and capacity overview. We were able to react on it right away. And this also, of course, goes in hand with communication. So that hasn't been highlighted that much, but communication between project managers, line managers is as much as important as the availability and transparency. So that was it for the case study. Let's move on to the struggle of forecasting. So balancing the capacity and demand. So balancing the capacity and demand is a critical aspect of effective business operation. Having too much capacity can lead to unnecessary cost, while not having enough lead to missed opportunities and unsatisfied customers. And typically what we do when we are talking with our customers is showing them this graph. So that's trying to pull in a proper process, telling you that you have a fixed capacity, right? It's going up and down for each month, depending on the amount of working days, holidays, etc., etc. Then you have a demand, which is the roles and people should be turned around, but you have a demand here where you're asking for a specific type. That could be a developer, consultant, project manager, engineer, tester, etc., etc. That you typically are able to do within the project lifetime, and that could depend on the length of the project. So that will be something between 1 to 3 years, for example. And then you have the people which are allocated. That's your capacity that you have free. And you will typically be able to allocate people within 6 to 18 months, depending on your process and project timeline, of course. And that's why you see the people allocation goes further down to 0, because we are not looking that much into the future as the demand. So demand forecasting, demand forecast accuracy can be challenging due to a lot of unpredictable factors. However, utilizing historical data to predict future demand can optimize for better demand accuracy. Team Planner used together with PowerHub gives you the advantage of utilizing historical data and learning how to predict the future with an even better precision. Capacity management and constantly demand changes from decision makers can make capacity challenge factor. We talked about it just before, the increased pressure from the management, putting in new business cases, new products, new technologies. To be up to speed requires monitoring and adjustment, especially when entering the holiday season where capacity will be limited. You have people on and off, maybe equipment cannot be used and suppliers are not delivering on time. Having a good overview ensures you're in control and bottlenecks can be identified quickly and probably even before they're happening. Balancing demand and capacity lies in accurately predicting demand and efficiently aligning it with the capacity. If not done properly, this can lead to very inefficient execution. Optimizing the process of balancing various aspects will enhance this. Ensure good communication and transparency, establishing a proper process, and lastly, a good tool can help to keep the balancing in place. So I've talked a bit about this. So the process is quite important, right? That's one of the first things we look into, process and communication. That's very important in order to be accurately see the demand that you need for your resources, but also seeing bottlenecks. The tool is just something that can help you facilitate that. That's not the final answer. That's something that you help, giving you the overview and giving you the possibility to see where bottlenecks happening. Then we have enhancing forecast techniques. So today it can be difficult to do that correctly. It can be very beneficial for the execution to ensure you have good technologies or tools to do that. The Projectum platform has tools that can help you to predict better. Together we can understand the increasing demand coming in versus the capacity constraint for these. We have Power PPM to control and manage and running your projects. We have Team Planner to ensure your resource demand and capacity. We have Time for Teams that help you actually see how was the time spent, time tracking. And then we have PowerHub that can leverage all that data and do trend analysis, look at historical data, and even hopefully predict what will be coming. We can leverage and understand these patterns for the full project lifecycle utilizing the Projectum platform. And then the conclusion is that navigating in struggle and optimizing the balance between demand and capacity will be a huge upside for any organization. There is not a single answer to this question. However, what we have seen is starting out simple and enhancing the process over time will give you much more knowledge on how to adjust than just starting with a big bang. Ensuring this, you will be able to predict the demand over time and also foresee bottlenecks before they happen and probably also remove the friction that you have within capacity management. So let's end on a live demo and then I will come back to the practical, the key takeaways. All right, so what you have seen now is, of course, that we are able to move this. So let's assume I want to allocate. I can go in here and I can select the given period. And let's see here, there we go, we take November and forward. I can see what resources do I have available. To get the correct view, of course, I will only see the 9 resources that I have within here. So basically, I have some developers, some consultants. I have the contract properties, which was filled out from the demander, and I can go in and see Mathieu has available time. He's allocated 0%. What kind of skills do we have? He has some Azure, Power BI, Power Platform. All right, let's utilize Mathieu. So we can add him here. And when I'm as a line manager allocating, I can right away see the capacity that he has. So I can see that he has a lot of free capacity, and therefore I can also go in and say match request. And then it's basically just matching the request 1-to-1. So you can see we went from a red line up here where I have a demand I have not answered to having a demand I have answered with an allocation. And furthermore, I have some developer here. Niklas is a developer, no specific skills, but I can add him to this line as well. Sorry for that. Let's go in here again and let's add Niklas, for example. And then I can see, all right, that's fine. We will match that request as well. So I'm able to line manager react and allocate. Oh, something went wrong. Let's try just to put in 150 hours then, and let's drag it along. So that's one way of doing that. What you have seen is that, well, it maybe worked actually, but let's what you have seen here is that we saw before ISP was over allocated. What I can do as a line manager is that I can utilize the resource planner view to identify bottlenecks. And what you can see here, let's take a better timeline from June to April, for example. Then what you will see is, all right, ISP is quite over allocated. How is that? Well, he's allocated to something business as usual. So that will typically be the operational things, not project related. That could be training, other stuff that is needed. Then he's allocated to the Red Compass project for a lot of hours. And then he's starting his vacation season, right? So he has vacation in July, August, September, and October. And this means that he's basically over allocated. I have some options to actually remove this friction. So I can go in and say, okay, I can see Niklas has some free time. Maybe not at the end because of this. We can remove that right in here as well. So I will say, okay, remove this. Niklas is good to go. And then I can actually drag this one down here, remove the friction from ISP, and ensure that Niklas is doing the proper tasks. And of course, communication is very important here. We need to ensure the communication, and we need to ensure that there is an alignment and a process to actually facilitate this. Before we end, time is almost up. I just want to show you how the moving of data is actually changing. Let me see here if that was actually done. The data set should be refreshed. Let me try one more time. No, not yet. It will come in a second. However, we talked about utilizing Power Hub to actually predict and see back. So basically you can see here, I can go, let's say 18 months back, and I can actually see how our demand on our capacity was back in time. What I can also do is that I can actually, as a line manager, go into my resource manager overview, and I can look, okay, my building tower project, for example, how's that going? Well, I have an original demand, I have some allocations, and I have some actual work coming in, right? So I can compare all these things from the different Projectum platform tools. Let me see here. It should be completed now. And let me show you if we can refresh this again. And now it should be better. Yes, you can see the demand coming up over here. It's because I have not selected it. Let's do it like that. You can see the demand adding here, right? So actually moving this demand from this project, postponing it, will allow me to basically fulfill it within the capacity with just a few shorts here on the beginning of the year. All right, time's almost up. Let's move back to slide deck. And In order to ensure the time, I actually wanted you to put in your key takeaways and best practices. However, there wasn't that many involvements in the Menti, so let's leave that for now. Then I want to come with my key takeaways and best practices. So I've been talking about this during the webinar. So the first thing is to look into process optimization, right? There's always a way to optimize the process to ensure you don't have that much friction, to ensure that you have a proper way to do your demand and capacity management. Ensure you have transparency. So a good overview, good data, and ensuring you have all you need in a good overview, that could be reports, etc., is very beneficial. And then, of course, communication. Communication is one of the most important part, and Team Planner is not a tool that should replace communication. Even though we are facilitating some of those areas, we still want communication to happen. That could be having bi-weekly meetings, quarterly meetings where you're going through the business, the capacity, the demand. And then at the end, I will look at the tooling. So add tools that can help you facilitate the above. That makes it easy and simple to actually get this overview. That will be my best practices and key takeaway from this. And again, there is not a single answer, but we have seen a lot of customers succeed with this using some of the different solutions. And then lastly, Q&A. So I don't know if there has been any questions. Yes?
There's a question. Can we set up a role capacity?
So at the moment, there is not a dedicated role capacity in Team Planner, but we're actually looking into having that feature. So let's assume, and you saw with the example before, where I have Team Andreas split into consultants and developers. It will be very beneficial to actually have the knowledge of what is the capacity of the developer. That could be 4 people, so that will be the capacity times 4, and actually make that visible for the line managers. So for the project managers, so project managers are also entitled to see, okay, I'm demanding this, but I can already now see that there is no capacity available. So that's something we're definitely looking into in Team Planner, actually utilize that. However, it can of course be set up in reports, so you can actually have this overview, because here we have all the knowledge on capacity related to that generic resource. I hope that answers the question. Are there any more questions? All right, I'm having someone tell me no more questions. I hope you liked the session. Unfortunately, I cannot come with the final answer to this, but it's a very, very important topic. And here at Projektum, and especially for myself, it's very important to every day trying to make our solutions even better and help project managers, line managers, and even top management to being able to facilitate and understand this even better. So hopefully you find it useful. And if anything, please reach out to me. And thanks for watching along.